But a few years back, when you were on Sportsnet, and things were completely different surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs at this time, uh, you suggested that the Maple Leafs should trade Mitch Marner.
Which got a
With
lot of attention.
it did, with what we know now, with he's averaged well over a point per game in the regular season. He's a very talented player, but
Yeah.
when we get to the playoffs, it doesn't exactly transition to success. So, what are your thoughts now?
Well, I've always been a big fan of Mitch Marner. I was fortunate enough to even coach a prospects game, a Bantam prospects game, as he was entering junior A hockey, and I knew he was a special talent back then. Uh, to come totally clear on my suggestion back then to trade Mitch Marner, that was strictly coming from my end, watching him being used from day one. And clearly at that point, there was a level of frustration, not only for Mitch Marner, but Leaf fans, that he wasn't used properly, that he was on the fourth line, that he was still finding ways to produce, but not utilized in a starring role. And at that point, when I made the suggestion, Jake, for the Leafs to trade him, it was only because I think he was being underutilized, that they weren't getting their bang for their buck for a top five pick, and that if they were going to use him in a limited role, why not trade him right now for a top defenseman? And that's why I said trade Mitch Marner, not because I didn't think he was a very good player or he'd end up being a great player. Just at the time, I didn't like the way the Leafs were using him. Saying that, he's turned into every bit of a star player that people forecasted him to be. It certainly hasn't transitioned into a playoff scenario, but it hasn't for Marner and hasn't for Morgan Riley or any of them, any one of them. And I think Mitch Marner should share his portion of the blame, but there's plenty to go around on what's wrong with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And again, for guys like Braden Point or Mitch Marner to succeed in the playoffs, they've got to have special players around them, including role players. And the Leafs just haven't even come close to being built like a Tampa Bay Lightning. And Mitch Marner should carry a portion of the burden of not producing, and he's a big boy, and he's done that, and he will carry that into the next season. But there's plenty of fingers being pointed, and I'm not sure all of them should just be pointed at a guy like Mitch Marner or even Austin Matthews to a certain extent. They're young, they're learning how to manage expectations, learning to manage the big contracts, and they'll still get more opportunities to prove that they're good players, if not great players. But the team around them's got to be a lot better.